You've probably noticed a paradox in the housing market that while average Americans are still coping with stagnant wages, little savings, and a ton of debt, home prices throughout the country continue to skyrocket to pre-2008 numbers. So, how does that make any sense? If you're living in New York, San Francisco, Seattle, or Los Angeles, many of those vacant homes or gaudy high-rise luxury condos you're noticing in your neighborhood are actually occupied by foreign money. Chinese and Russian investors tend to be concerned about the economic uncertainty and instability in their own countries, so they invest in properties abroad in an effort to protect their fortunes or get their hands on EB-5 visas, which our government slangs out to rich foreigners who invest at least $500,000 in U.S.-based projects. But the people who pay the heftiest price are Americans who just want a little piece of the American dream or an affordable place to live. Homeownership has become increasingly unattainable for the middle class, and while the media just chalks it up to supply and demand, they rarely focus on why supply is so low. Since foreign investors purchase real estate in cash, any American who needs to take out a mortgage cannot compete. Take Valing Tsai, a doctor with a private practice near LA who struggled to buy a home for 3 years. According to the Los Angeles Times, he and his wife grew deflated after attending crowded open houses in Arcadia and San Marino, where Mandarin-speaking competition almost always made all-cash offers. The couple had 5 bids rejected. Tsai ended up paying $200,000 over asking price for a home in South Pasadena. He told the LA Times, "I think I make a good living, but even being a doctor, I couldn't afford some of these houses because people were buying them like Starbucks coffees." Chinese investment in LA real estate peaked in 2014, when a whopping $2.6 billion was poured into its properties. The number has dwindled to a mere $1.5 billion each year since, but the impact of the price of homes isn't negligible. According to Zillow, the median listing price for a home in LA was around $375,000 in 2012. Today, that number is $624,000. This trend isn't unique to LA. Last year, Bloomberg reported that the number of million-dollar homes in the U.S. doubled from 2012 to 2016. According to East West Property Advisors, over the past year, 30% of Chinese investment inquiries were for properties outside of New York, Los Angeles, and San Francisco. Seattle replaced San Fran as the third most viewed market. Houston and Las Vegas have also become desirable cities for foreign investors. The National Association of Realtors also notes that foreign buyers purchased $102.6 billion worth of residential property in the U.S. between April of 2015 and March of 2016. In fact, they bought an estimated 215,000 homes in the Southeast and the Midwest. I asked viewers on my Facebook page to share their experiences with the housing market, and I got an insane number of responses from frustrated people throughout the world who are noticing the same trend in their own countries. By the way, if you haven't already, follow me on Facebook and Instagram at Kasparian Official. Turns out that's where I read the comments. Danny Stamp from London writes, "We have a ton of homes in prime locations which are unoccupied and just being used as assets for foreign investors, while our conservative government refuses to build affordable housing for millennials who are a generation of renters." Yeah, I feel you. We're dealing with the same thing in the States. Matt Stuckenberg writes, "I live in Victoria, British Columbia." Of course, that's Canada, which is neighboring Vancouver. These two cities are the two most ridiculously inflated housing markets in North America. The province introduced a foreign buyers tax on the Vancouver market, which pushed investors to Victoria and other Canadian cities. Matt isn't wrong. Mother Jones recently wrote an extensive piece about the housing market in Vancouver. While citizens struggle to afford housing in the area, 6.5% of the homes owned by foreign nationals sit vacant. Some foreign owners even hire shady companies to make it look as though the homes are occupied. Similar trends are also seen in Australia and Japan. The reality is that there are many factors that drive up property prices, like low interest rates and population growth. There's also an issue with investors snatching up homes and apartments only to list them on Airbnb and similar sites. But local lawmakers have caught on to that behavior and passed regulations to mitigate it. While some countries have begun to implement special taxes on foreign investors, it's clearly not enough to stop the rapid inflation in the housing market. It also doesn't help when Jared Kushner's sister travels to China to encourage more investment in high-end properties in exchange for the golden visas. While the housing market crashed in 2008, the federal government came to the rescue. But not to help Americans who were struggling to save their homes. It was to bail out the bankers who got us into the mess in the first place. Is it really any surprise that our government, especially under the Trump administration, has little interest in reserving homes for Americans? Just something to think about as the midterm elections come up.